Title: The Secrets Behind the Unnamed Soldiers. They have no name, yet they are among the most honored soldiers in the nation. They've been awarded the Medal of Honor, the Victoria Cross, and the highest accolades of allied nations, but we will never know who they are. They rest in honored glory beneath a massive marble sarcophagus, guarded day and night, in sunshine, rain, and snow, by a silent, solitary sentinel. The guard's walk is a ritual of 21 steps. A 21-second pause. A turn, and 21 more steps back. It's a silent, ceaseless ballet of remembrance. But how does a fallen hero become an unknown? What are the solemn rituals and secret processes that select one unidentified soldier from thousands to represent them all? What secrets are kept to ensure they remain forever anonymous? Today, we're uncovering the complete story behind the unnamed soldiers. From the harrowing battlefields where they fell, to the secret selection ceremonies, to the hallowed ground where they rest in eternal, silent honor. This is the story of the tomb of the unknown soldier. The sentinel's vigil, an unbroken promise. To understand the gravity of the tomb, you first have to understand the men and women who guard it. They are members of the 3rd U.S. Infantry Regiment, known to the world as the Old Guard. Since April 6, 1948, they have kept a constant vigil, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They aren't just soldiers, they are sentinels, living symbols of America's promise to never forget. And that ritual they perform is steeped in symbolism. The guard marches 21 steps down the 63-foot black mat before the tomb. He then turns and faces the tomb for 21 seconds. He turns again and repeats the 21 steps back. That number isn't arbitrary. It represents the 21-gun salute, the highest military honor that can be bestowed. In everything they do, the sentinels are firing a perpetual, silent salute to the unknowns. Becoming a sentinel is one of the most difficult and prestigious duties in the U.S. military. It's a volunteer position, and get this, fewer than 20% of those who even volunteer are accepted for training. The training itself is a crucible. Candidates have to memorize the history of Arlington National Cemetery, including the locations of hundreds of notable grave sites. They must master the intricate sequence of the guard change, a 9-minute ceremony of flawless precision. Their uniforms are a study in perfection. Each sentinel spends hours preparing for their shift. Medals are measured with a ruler to be exactly centered. Shoes are polished to a mirror shine. The rifle is meticulously cleaned. There can be no imperfections. Here's something you might not know: the sentinels don't wear any rank insignia on their uniforms while on duty. This is a sign of profound respect, ensuring the guard is always junior in rank to the unknown soldiers they protect. They are subordinate to the fallen heroes, a living testament to the idea that the sacrifice of these unknowns is the highest rank of all. The soldiers live in quarters right below the memorial amphitheater, ready to assume their duty at a moment's notice. They are a brotherhood, bound by a sacred mission. They stand their watch through hurricanes, blizzards, and sweltering summer heat. There has never been a moment when the tomb has been unguarded. This unbroken vigil is the first and most visible secret of the tomb, a constant, living promise from a grateful nation. This dedication, this relentless watch, all serves to underscore the profound importance of the men buried here. But this raises the central question: how did they get here? How, from the chaos of war, does a nation choose one body to carry the weight of all who were lost without a name? To answer that, we have to go back to a world shattered by war. The birth of an idea, a world drowning in grief. The story of the tomb of the unknown soldier begins in the aftermath of the most devastating conflict the world had ever known, World War I. Before 1914, warfare was brutal, but for the most part, the dead could be identified. Soldiers wore distinct uniforms and fought in formations. But the Great War changed everything. It was a war of machines. Artillery barrages could erase entire landscapes, and the men in them, in seconds. It was a war of trenches, mud, and chaos. This brutal, modern warfare meant that for the first time, tens of thousands of soldiers died in a way that left their remains utterly unidentifiable. They were lost to the battlefield, their dog tags destroyed, their bodies fragmented by explosives. A new kind of grief was born, the grief for the missing, for the soldier who went to war and simply vanished, leaving a family with no grave to visit and no certainty of their loved one's fate. As nations grappled with this collective trauma, a powerful new idea began to take hold. On Armistice Day, November 11, 1920, Great Britain buried an unidentified, unknown warrior in Westminster Abbey. On the same day, France interred their soldat inconnu beneath the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. These acts were revolutionary. They created a single, symbolic grave that every family of a missing soldier could claim as their own, a focal point for a nation's shared mourning. Across the Atlantic, America was watching. The U.S. had entered the war late but suffered over 116,000 deaths, with thousands listed as missing or unidentified. While American policy was to bring fallen service members home if requested, for the unidentified, there was no one to make that request. They were buried in American cemeteries in Europe, their headstones marked, "Here rests in honored glory an American soldier known but to God." The idea for an American tomb came from a man who had seen the war's horrors firsthand, Congressman Hamilton Fish Jr., a decorated veteran from New York. He felt deeply that the U.S. must honor its unknown dead in a similar fashion. In December 1920, he introduced legislation to bring one unknown American soldier back from France to be buried with the highest honors at Arlington National Cemetery. Fish's proposal resonated powerfully with the public. It was a way to give meaning to anonymous sacrifice. The legislation moved quickly and was signed into law on March 4, 1921. The United States would have its own unknown soldier. The site chosen was the plaza of the Memorial Amphitheater at Arlington National Cemetery, overlooking Washington, D.C. The stage was set. Now, the Army faced a task of unprecedented solemnity. They had to choose him. The process they designed was a masterclass in secrecy and symbolism, meant to ensure the chosen soldier would be, and would remain, forever unknown. The first solemn secret, choosing the World War I unknown. The selection of the first unknown soldier wasn't just a matter of picking a casket. It was a secret, deeply symbolic process designed to be random, anonymous, and profoundly respectful. The Army's Graves Registration Service was given the monumental task. The orders were to select a man who was verifiably American but completely unidentifiable, no name, rank, organization, or date of death. In the spring of 1921, the process began. The Army ordered the disinterment of 4 unidentified American soldiers from 4 different American military cemeteries in France: Aisne-Marne, Meuse-Argonne, Somme, and Saint-Méeul. These were the sites of the 4 great American offensives of the war. From each of these hallowed grounds, one unknown soldier was exhumed. Their remains were placed in identical cases, and any paperwork from their original burial plots was destroyed. They were now pure symbols. The 4 caskets were transported to the City Hall in Chalon-sur-Marne, France. There, on October 23, 1921, they were transferred into identical pine caskets, each draped with an American flag. For an entire night, they lay in state, guarded by American and French soldiers. The next morning, October 24, the final selection was made. For this solemn duty, the Army didn't choose a general or a politician. They chose an ordinary soldier, a combat-wounded and decorated veteran, Sergeant Edward F. Younger. He was chosen to represent all the enlisted men who had fought and died. At 10 a.m., Sergeant Younger entered the chamber where the 4 caskets lay. In his hands, he carried a spray of white roses. The choice was his alone. Official accounts describe a moment of intense, silent gravity. Sergeant Younger slowly circled the 4 caskets 3 times. He seemed to be in a state of prayer, the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He paused, then walked to the third casket from the left and silently placed the spray of white roses upon it. With that simple gesture, the unknown soldier had been chosen. The 3 caskets not chosen were immediately reinterred in the Musargon American Cemetery. The selected soldier began his long journey home, escorted with full military honors. At the port of Le Havre, the casket was placed aboard the USS Olympia, Commodore Dewey's former flagship, linking this modern soldier's sacrifice to America's military history. The USS Olympia sailed for home, and on November 9, 1921, the unknown soldier returned to American soil. The casket lay in state in the U.S. Capitol Rotunda, an honor usually reserved for presidents. For 2 days, tens of thousands of Americans filed past in silent reverence. Finally, on November 11, 1921, exactly 3 years after the war's end, the unknown soldier was carried by a horse-drawn caisson to Arlington National Cemetery. He was laid to rest as President Warren G. Harding bestowed upon him the Medal of Honor. The secret was kept. The soldier was home. A monument of marble and meaning. The simple tomb from 1921 was always meant to be temporary. The nation wanted a more fitting tribute. In 1926, Congress authorized a design competition for a monumental sarcophagus. The winning design was from architect Lorimer Rich and sculptor Thomas Hudson Jones. Its construction was a feat of artistry. It began with a single, colossal block of Yule marble from Colorado, the same pristine white marble used for the Lincoln Memorial. The main block weighed over 100 tons before being cut. It was transported to Vermont for shaping, then to Arlington for the detailed carving. And here's an incredible detail: the intricate sculpting was done by the Piccirilli brothers, a family of 6 Italian immigrant stone carvers working in the Bronx. These were the same master craftsmen who carved the statue of Abraham Lincoln inside the Lincoln Memorial. The monument they created, unveiled in 1932, is a masterpiece. It consists of 7 massive pieces of marble with a total weight of 79 tons. Every detail is symbolic. On the front, 3 classical figures represent peace, victory, and valor. On the back are 6 inverted wreaths, representing the 6 major American campaigns of World War I, a quiet acknowledgement of the great cost of those victories. And on the side facing the grave are the unforgettable words, "Here rests in honored glory an American soldier known but to God." The tomb is more than a grave, it's a secular altar for the nation, a place of pilgrimage. But the story of America's unknowns wasn't finished. New wars were on the horizon, which would call on other generations to make the ultimate sacrifice and would require expanding this sacred ground. The unnamed continue to fall, World War II and Korea. Of course, the hope that World War I would be the war to end all wars didn't last. 2 decades later, the world was again engulfed in conflict. After World War II, the idea of honoring an unknown from this new war gained traction. But the process was delayed by the outbreak of the Korean War. So, it was decided that unknowns from both conflicts would be honored together. President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed the legislation in 1956. The selection for the World War II unknown was even more complex, reflecting the war's global scale. The Army exhumed 13 unidentified bodies from cemeteries across North Africa and Europe. At a ceremony in France on May 12, 1958, Major General Edward J. O'Neill selected the unknown soldier from the European theater. Meanwhile, a similar process took place for the Pacific Theater. 2 unknowns, one from Europe, one from the Pacific, now represented the war's main fronts. But only one could lie in the tomb. The final selection was conducted at sea. The 2 caskets were placed aboard the USS Canberra. On May 26, 1958, as the ship sailed off the Virginia coast, Navy Hospital Alman First Class William R. Charette, a Medal of Honor recipient from the Korean War, was given the solemn task. He walked between the 2 caskets and placed a wreath on the one to his right. This was now the American unknown of World War II. The other casket was given a full military burial at sea. The selection of the Korean War unknown followed a similar protocol. For unidentified soldiers were exhumed from the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific in Hawaii. Army Master Sergeant Ned Lyle, a distinguished veteran of the Korean War, selected the one to represent all the unknown fallen from that conflict. The two new unknowns arrived in Washington, D.C., and lay in state in the Capitol Rotunda. On Memorial Day, May 30, 1958, two horse-drawn caissons carried them to Arlington. There, they were interred in new crypts in front of the main sarcophagus. President Eisenhower presided, awarding each the Medal of Honor. The tomb now held 3 American heroes, representing 3 different eras of sacrifice. But one more conflict would add a final, dramatic, and unforeseen chapter to the story. The secret that couldn't be kept, the Vietnam unknown. For years, another crypt lay empty, awaiting a soldier from the Vietnam War. Finding a truly unknown soldier proved difficult due to advances in forensic science. Finally, in 1984, remains recovered from a crash site in Vietnam, designated X-26, were certified as unidentifiable by the methods of the time. On Memorial Day, 1984, this soldier was interred in the 3rd crypt. President Ronald Reagan presided over the ceremony, presenting the Vietnam unknown with the Medal of Honor. He said, "We write no last chapters. We close no books. We put away no final memories." The Vietnam unknown lay in the tomb for 14 years. But as President Reagan said, the book wasn't closed. A new chapter was about to be written by a technology that was just in its infancy in 1984, DNA testing. In the years that followed, a family in St. Louis, Missouri, held on to the belief that the Vietnam unknown might be their son and brother, Air Force First Lieutenant Michael J. Blassie. Blassie's jet had been shot down near An Loc, Vietnam, in May 1972. Though remains were recovered, the technology of the 70s couldn't make a positive ID. Blassie's family, led by his sister Pat, began a determined quest for answers. Their quest, combined with the revolutionary power of mitochondrial DNA analysis, finally led the Department of Defense to an unprecedented decision. In 1998, with the family's permission, the crypt was opened, and the remains were exhumed. Scientists compared a DNA sample from the remains to samples from Michael Blassie's mother and sister. The results were conclusive. The Vietnam unknown had a name. He was First Lieutenant Michael J. Blassie. The secret could no longer be kept, nor should it be. The military's mission is to leave no one behind. On July 11, 1998, the remains of Michael Blassie were returned to his family and buried with full honors in Jefferson Barracks National Cemetery in his home state of Missouri. He was no longer an unknown soldier, he was a son, a brother, and a hero, finally home. So, what happened to the empty crypt? It was decided that it would remain vacant. The crypt cover was replaced with a new one. Its inscription was changed to read, "Honoring and Keeping Faith with America's Missing Servicemen, 1958 to 1975. It no longer holds a body, but it holds a powerful idea, a tribute to all those from the Vietnam War who never came home." The story of the Vietnam unknown is a powerful reminder that while technology changes, the nation's commitment to honoring its heroes, named or unnamed, is absolute. The dedication to these soldiers is a story of honor that continues through the ceaseless vigil of the Sentinels. If you believe in honoring this legacy and want to explore more stories of service and sacrifice, consider subscribing and sharing this video. #Conclusion, an unbroken vigil, an unspoken promise. The sound of polished shoes on stone. A lone soldier walking a line of perfect, measured steps. The tomb of the unknown soldier is the final resting place for unidentified American heroes from World War I, World War II, and the Korean War. In a larger sense, it is the tomb for them all. It is a symbolic grave for every service member whose name is known only to God. The tomb is not merely a place of death. It's a place of life, the life of a nation's memory. It's a solemn promise that valor doesn't need a name to be honored and that the cost of freedom is a debt that can never be fully repaid, only perpetually acknowledged. The sentinels don't just protect marble and bone. They guard an idea. They stand watch over the very soul of military sacrifice. And in their silent, steady vigil, they assure us all that here, in this sacred place, a grateful nation never forgets.